Adrian drove up the winding driveway of his sprawling mansion earlier than expected. He had planned to surprise his wife with an unannounced return, but something in him urged him to get home even sooner. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows over the manicured gardens and reflecting off the marble columns of the estate. Everything seemed calm, too calm. He parked his sleek black car in the garage and stepped out, stretching after the long flight from London. The house appeared quiet, but as he approached the main door, he noticed flickering lights from the drawing room windows. A sense of unease prickled at his spine, a feeling he hadn't experienced since childhood when he had learned that appearances could be deceiving. Slipping silently into the grand foyer, Adrian's gaze immediately fell on the drawing room. What he saw made him freeze. Selina, the black maid who had worked for the family for years, was kneeling beside Lila, his 6-year-old daughter, her hand resting gently on the girl's shoulder. Lila's face was turned up to Selina's, smiling and laughing softly, and Selina leaned close, whispering something in a tone so tender it sent a jolt of unfamiliar emotion through Adrian. For a moment, he simply watched, his mind racing. The intimacy of the gesture, the closeness he hadn't expected, it was enough to make his pulse spike and his chest tighten. Was this simply a motherly moment between caretaker and child, or something else entirely? Adrian's instinct, sharpened by years of high-stakes business and the constant scrutiny of the world, urged him to protect his daughter. He stepped back, retreating to the shadows, careful not to make a sound. Every muscle in his body was tense, ready to intervene if necessary. His mind churned with a mix of suspicion and confusion. What was happening here? Why had he never noticed such closeness before? Lila's laughter echoed through the room, innocent and carefree, but to Adrian it sounded like a warning bell. He felt the first flicker of anger mixed with fear, a storm he could neither name nor calm. That night, Adrian stayed in the shadows, observing, waiting, and trying to decipher the scene before him. The mansion was silent except for the faint rustle of curtains and the soft murmur of voices. And somewhere deep inside, a warning whispered that this evening would change everything, forever. Adrian spent the night pacing in his study, unable to sleep. The image of Selina kneeling beside Lila, her hand on the little girl's shoulder, haunted him. Was it merely a motherly gesture, or was there something more hidden beneath her serene smile? He couldn't tell. His mind, trained for strategy and suspicion in boardrooms, now turned that same analytical lens on his own household. Meanwhile, Selina went about her routine, unaware of the storm brewing in Adrian's mind. She hummed softly as she tidied Lila's toys, her movements careful and deliberate. Her life had never been easy, years of struggle had honed her diligence and kindness. She had come to love Lila genuinely, not as a duty but as a bond, and she poured herself into her care with an authenticity that few could match. Adrian's mind wandered back to his own life, long hours of meetings, endless social obligations, a constant demand to control and oversee. Trust was a luxury he rarely afforded, and his pride had often clouded his judgment in the past. He realized he was seeing Selina through a lens tainted by ego and insecurity. Yet, the suspicion lingered. He replayed the scene repeatedly in his mind, noticing every glance, every gesture. Small details, the tilt of Selina's head, the softness in her voice, were being interpreted as signs of something inappropriate. Adrian's emotions battled within him, fear for his daughter, jealousy he hadn't expected, and the frustration of feeling powerless in his own home. He decided he needed to know for certain. He couldn't allow his imagination, or his pride, to dictate the safety of his child. Quietly, he began planning how he could catch them in the act, to either confirm his suspicions or put his mind at ease. The thought made him feel like a spy in his own mansion, crouched behind shadows, waiting for truth to reveal itself. Outside, the night deepened. The mansion, usually a place of opulence and control, felt alien to him. Shadows stretched across the walls, and every creak of the floorboards seemed amplified. Adrian realized that tonight, nothing would be simple. Secrets, misunderstandings, and truths were all poised to collide, and the first confrontation was only hours away. The next morning, Adrian remained in the shadows of the grand hallway, watching the drawing room through the half-open door. Selina was kneeling on the rug, holding Lila's tiny hands, guiding her fingers across a colorful puzzle. Lila laughed with delight, her eyes sparkling, and Adrian's chest tightened. His mind screamed that he was seeing something inappropriate, yet deep down, he sensed that the gestures were innocent. He scrutinized every movement. The way Selena leaned toward Lila, the soft tones of her voice, the gentle touch, everything could be misread by someone overly protective or suspicious. Adrian's pride whispered that his authority as a father was being undermined, yet another part of him recognized the warmth and care in Selena's eyes. Lila suddenly tripped over a puzzle piece, and Selena caught her instantly, pulling her into a comforting embrace. Adrian's heart leapt, a mix of relief and lingering suspicion. Could a stranger's embrace ever be so tender and protective? The ambiguity gnawed at him. Selena noticed something out of the corner of her eye, a shadow in the doorway. Her instinct told her someone was watching, but when she glanced up, there was no one. She assumed it was Lila's imagination or perhaps the reflection from the polished floor. She smiled reassuringly at the child and continued teaching her patiently. Adrian, meanwhile, debated whether to reveal himself. His protective instincts clashed with his desire to maintain control and dignity. He considered stepping forward, but the sight of Selena comforting Lila with such tenderness made him hesitate. The doubt in his mind grew heavier with each passing second. Hours seemed to stretch as he observed them. Lila chattered about her day, oblivious to the tension in the room. Selena listened, laughed, and responded with patience that contrasted sharply with Adrian's own restless energy. Slowly, he realized that what he had interpreted as intimacy or impropriety was nothing more than a genuine bond between caregiver and child. By evening, Adrian felt a mix of relief and shame. He had been misled by his assumptions and insecurities. Yet, he also understood why Selena's actions could be misread by someone unaccustomed to genuine care and warmth. As he retreated to his study, he vowed to confront Selena, but not with accusations. He needed clarity, understanding, and perhaps, a way to reconcile his mistrust with the truth he was beginning to see. The confrontation, he realized, would be inevitable. Adrian waited until evening, when the golden light of sunset spilled across the mansion's hallways. He had rehearsed what he would say, trying to balance authority with caution. His steps were measured as he approached the drawing room, where Selena was reading a bedtime story to Lila. The little girl's eyes sparkled with excitement, her laughter filling the room like a gentle melody. "Selena," Adrian's voice cut through the air, firm and controlled. The maid looked up instantly, her posture stiffening. She had never been spoken to this way before, the tone carrying a weight she could feel in her bones. "Sir?" Selena asked, her eyes wide, alert, yet calm. I need to speak with you," Adrian said, keeping his distance. "Now." His gaze flicked to Lila, who sensed tension and clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Outside, please." "Lila, you can wait here." The little girl's eyes pleaded silently, but she obeyed, retreating reluctantly to a corner of the room. Selena followed Adrian to the hallway, her expression a mixture of confusion and apprehension. "I saw you with Lila earlier," Adrian began, his voice tight with controlled emotion. "And I'm not sure what to think." He hesitated, struggling to find the right words. Was there something inappropriate happening? Selena's breath hitched slightly. "Sir, she stopped, unsure how to explain that nothing untoward had occurred. Her loyalty and integrity bristled against the accusation, yet she knew that a dignified response was required. "Sir, I care for Lila as if she were my own. I was merely comforting her and teaching her a new game." Adrian's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning hers for deception. Lila's laughter echoed faintly from the room, an innocent sound that contradicted the tension between them. I saw how close you were, how intimate your gestures seemed. I couldn't tell if it was appropriate." His voice faltered, betraying the conflict raging inside him. Selena's eyes softened. "I understand your concern, sir. But you must trust that my intentions are purely for Lila's well-being. I would never compromise her safety or dignity." Adrian's shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of guilt pressing down. He had misjudged her, letting suspicion cloud reason. Yet the confrontation had illuminated the boundaries, the respect, and the care that Selena had always maintained. As they stood in silence, Adrian realized that trust was fragile but essential. And while the misunderstanding had been uncomfortable, it had also revealed something he hadn't anticipated: the unwavering devotion of someone who truly cared for his daughter. After the tense confrontation, Adrian retreated to his study, his mind racing. The mansion, normally a sanctuary of control and precision, now felt like a labyrinth of uncertainty. He couldn't shake the image of Selena with Lila, nor the weight of the words exchanged in the hallway. Guilt gnawed at him, but curiosity, and the need for absolute certainty, drove him forward. Quietly, Adrian began to investigate. He accessed the house's security cameras, scanning footage from earlier that day. His eyes widened as he saw the scene unfold exactly as it had in his memory, but with a starkly different perspective. Selena was kneeling beside Lila, yes, but she was teaching her the intricate steps of a new puzzle, patiently guiding her hands, laughing with gentle encouragement. Every gesture was innocent, maternal, protective. There was nothing untoward, nothing intimate beyond the natural bond between caregiver and child. Adrian's chest tightened as the reality sank in. He had misread the warmth between Selena and his daughter as something threatening, a reflection of his own insecurities and controlling tendencies. His mind flashed back to his business life, decades of negotiating power, interpreting intentions, reading subtle cues in boardrooms, skills that had failed him here, where emotional nuance mattered more than strategy. He closed the footage, leaning back in his chair, and allowed himself a moment of introspection. Selena's professionalism, her kindness, her dedication to Lila, it was remarkable. She had cared for his daughter not because she had to, but because she wanted to. The realization brought a mix of relief and shame. Adrian's thoughts wandered to Lila, who was now asleep in her room, probably dreaming of puzzles and laughter, unaware of the tension that had gripped the household. He understood, with a pang of guilt, how his mistrust might have affected her. Selena had shielded the child from the unease, maintaining a calm and loving environment despite Adrian's silent scrutiny. A deep sense of admiration filled him. Selena had proven herself loyal and trustworthy, qualities that money and authority could not command. Adrian knew he had to make amends, not only for his own peace of mind but to honor the bond that Selena had fostered with his daughter. That night, as the mansion settled into quiet, Adrian resolved to approach her with humility. He would apologize, acknowledge his mistakes, and attempt to rebuild the trust he had momentarily shattered. The revelation was clear: sometimes, true authority lay not in control or suspicion, but in understanding, gratitude, and respect. The next morning, Adrian awoke with a heaviness in his chest. Sleep had eluded him, and the images of yesterday's confrontation lingered like shadows. He realized that his misjudgment had been more than a simple misunderstanding. It had revealed the cracks in his own character, his insecurities, his need for control, and his tendency to see threats where there were none. He walked through the mansion silently, observing the order and care that Selena had woven into every corner. The toys were neatly arranged, Lila's clothes folded, and breakfast prepared exactly as the child liked it. Everything radiated patience, discipline, and love. Adrian felt a pang of guilt. He had almost let suspicion tarnish the work of someone who cared for his daughter as deeply as he did. Lila bounded into the room, her tiny hands clutching her favorite doll. "Daddy, look! Selena taught me a new song," she exclaimed, eyes bright with excitement. Adrian smiled, but a nod of regret remained. He saw, in Lila's innocent enthusiasm, how much the child depended on Selena's guidance and nurturing. The bond between them was genuine, unshakable, and he had merely judged it unfairly. Adrian retreated to his study, the quiet space allowing him to confront his own feelings. He reflected on his life. Years of wealth, influence, and power had given him control over almost everything, but he had never fully mastered trust. Selena's unwavering loyalty and patience highlighted the contrast. She wielded care, empathy, and commitment without expectation or command, and it was far more powerful than any authority he had ever held. He thought about the confrontation and replayed it in his mind, recognizing the hurt he might have caused. Selena had remained composed, professional, and dignified, never allowing the tension to disrupt her care for Lila. Her resilience left Adrian in awe. By evening, Adrian decided that apologies alone were not enough. He needed to act differently, to rebuild trust actively, and to prove through behavior, not words, that he valued Selena's presence and dedication. As he peeked into Lila's room later that night, he watched Selena softly humming while tucking the child into bed. A sense of calm settled over him. The misunderstanding had illuminated something profound. Trust is fragile, but it can be nurtured through understanding, respect, and patience. And Adrian, for the first time in a long while, felt the stirring of genuine humility. The following morning, Adrian decided it was time to face the situation head-on. He had spent hours reflecting on his actions, reviewing every detail of the previous day, and he knew that words alone would not suffice. He needed to approach Selena with humility and sincerity. He found her in the kitchen, arranging Lila's breakfast with her usual meticulous care. The sun streamed through the large windows, highlighting the warmth she had always brought into the mansion. Adrian hesitated for a moment, watching her work, and felt a pang of guilt for having doubted her. "Selena," he began, his voice softer than it had been before. She looked up, startled, but attentive. I owe you an apology." Selena's brow furrowed slightly, cautious but open. "Sir?" she asked gently. "I misjudged you yesterday," Adrian continued, stepping closer. "I saw you with Lila and jumped to conclusions. My suspicions, they were wrong. You have always cared for her with honesty and kindness, and I failed to recognize that." His hands clenched briefly before relaxing. "I'm sorry for accusing you, for doubting your integrity. I hope you can forgive my behavior." Selena's eyes softened, and a small, reassuring smile spread across her face. "Thank you for saying that, sir," she replied. "I understand your concern. You only want what's best for Lila, and that's natural. I've never doubted your love for her either." Adrian exhaled deeply, relief flooding through him. He realized that the act of acknowledging his mistake had lifted a weight he hadn't fully understood he was carrying. He also recognized that trust was a two-way street, one that required openness, understanding, and respect. "I want to do better," he admitted. "For both you and Lila. I don't want my fears or insecurities to interfere with the care you provide. You've earned my trust, Selena. And I want you to know that I see that now." Selena nodded, her posture relaxed, signaling that the tension had dissolved. "Your acknowledgement means a lot, sir. We all want Lila to be happy and safe. That's what matters most." At that moment, Lila ran into the room, her laughter bright and carefree, oblivious to the adult complexities around her. Adrian lifted her into his arms, and for the first time in days, a sense of harmony settled over the household. The apology had not only healed the rift between himself and Selena but also reinforced the bond among all three, a foundation of trust, respect, and love. The days that followed marked a subtle but profound shift in the mansion. Adrian approached his household with a newfound humility, determined to nurture the trust he had almost shattered. The weight of yesterday's misunderstanding had left him cautious, but it also opened his eyes to the depth of Selena's devotion and the innocence of Lila's world. He began with small gestures. Mornings were no longer rushed affairs dictated by schedules alone. Adrian joined Selena in preparing breakfast for Lila, learning how to slice fruit in ways that made the little girl giggle, and even attempting to fold napkins neatly. Lila's laughter filled the kitchen, warm and genuine, and Adrian realized how much he had missed in his relentless pursuit of control and perfection. Selena watched quietly, initially hesitant. She had never expected acknowledgement or partnership from Adrian, only professionalism in return for her dedication. Yet, she couldn't help but notice his sincerity. Each day, he asked questions about Lila's lessons, helped tidy toys, or simply lingered to share a story. His pride was no longer a barrier. Instead, it became a bridge to understanding. One afternoon, Adrian found himself sitting beside Lila on the rug, working through a puzzle with Selena guiding them both. He watched her patience in action, the way she explained each step without condescension, the way she celebrated Lila's smallest victories. Adrian felt a swell of admiration and gratitude. Here was someone who cared unconditionally, who gave selflessly, and who had never sought recognition. Slowly, he let go of the lingering doubts and fears. The previous mistrust now seemed distant, almost foreign. He learned to observe without judgment, to listen without assumptions, and to appreciate without expectation. Each shared activity, each quiet moment of laughter, strengthened the bond between them. By evening, the mansion felt alive in a way it hadn't before. The atmosphere was not one of control or tension but of harmony and mutual respect. Adrian realized that wealth and authority could never command loyalty or affection. These were earned through empathy, consistency, and genuine care. As he tucked Lila into bed that night, her hands slipping into his, he whispered softly, "Thank you, Selena, for everything." The words were simple but heartfelt. Selena's smile, serene and knowing, conveyed understanding and acceptance. In that moment, Adrian recognized the true meaning of trust: fragile, precious, and built through patience, humility, and shared love. The mansion had never felt so peaceful. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the carefully arranged furniture and the toys neatly set aside from yesterday's play. Adrian moved through the house with a lightness he hadn't known in years, a reflection of the emotional weight he had finally released. Lila laughed from the living room, chasing a rolling ball with Selena at her side. Her innocence radiated, filling the space with warmth. Adrian paused at the doorway, watching the pair interact. He realized how wrong he had been to misjudge Selena, to let suspicion cloud his perception of her devotion. She had been nothing but a loving, responsible presence in Lila's life, and he had learned the value of trust through his own mistakes. He stepped forward and joined them, gently scooping Lila into his arms. "Look at you two," he said softly, smiling at Selena. "I see now how lucky I am to have both of you in my life." Selena's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no tension, only mutual respect. "We all want the best for her," she replied. "That's what matters most." Adrian nodded, feeling a profound sense of humility. He had spent years mastering business deals, wielding influence, and commanding respect, but none of that compared to the trust he had witnessed and now cultivated within his own home. He understood that true authority came not from fear or control but from empathy, integrity, and consistency. That evening, they shared a quiet dinner together. Lila chatted animatedly about her day, recounting small victories and playful moments. Adrian listened attentively, genuinely interested, while Selena responded with gentle encouragement. The previous tension had dissolved completely, replaced by harmony, laughter, and mutual understanding. As night fell, Adrian tucked Lila into bed. Her small hand gripped his as she whispered, "I love you, Daddy, and Selena too." He kissed her forehead, feeling a rush of warmth and gratitude. Looking at Selena standing quietly by the door, he said, "Thank you, for everything you do." "Truly." Selena smiled, serene and unassuming, and Adrian knew that trust, once broken, could be restored with patience, sincerity, and respect. The house, once a place of tension and suspicion, now felt like a home in the truest sense, a sanctuary of love, understanding, and shared care. For the first time in a long time, Adrian felt complete. The lessons of humility, empathy, and trust would stay with him forever, shaping the bonds he cherished most, those with his daughter and the woman who had proven herself an irreplaceable part of their family.